This might sound crazy, especially coming from someone like me, but most people would actually feel way better about their money if they stopped YNABing so hard. So far, I've coached over 100 high earners using YNAB, and the same 5 mistakes keep showing up over and over again. These are mistakes that are quietly wrecking your progress, even for people making 6 figures or more who think they're doing everything right. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tyler, and in this video, I'll show you exactly what those 5 mistakes are and how to fix each one. Because once you stop making these mistakes, YNAB becomes a blessing, not a burden. I think the overarching theme here is that what most people get wrong is that they think the answer is somewhere hidden inside of YNAB. Another feature, another report, another way to organize categories or configure their targets, but it's not. You don't need to just use YNAB harder. You need to fix a few small mistakes in how you're using it. Fix these 5 mistakes, and you'll spend way less time managing your YNAB setup, feel calmer when you spend your money, and finally start seeing your dollars do their jobs without you constantly babysitting them. Let's get into it. Mistake number 1, treating YNAB like an expense tracker. A lot of people come to YNAB after years of using Mint, may it rest in peace, or spreadsheets, so they treat it the same way. Something that tells them where their money went last month. But that's not at all what YNAB is for. Tracking expenses tells you what happened. Planning in YNAB helps you decide what's going to happen next. Let me show you the difference. Let's say you're a family of 4 making $150,000 a year. Life is busy with kids' activities, travel, house projects, groceries that never end. You sit down and you see that last month you spent $900 eating out. In an expense tracker, that's just a number. You might even feel a little guilty about it for a minute and then move on or say to yourself something like, I guess we should try to eat out less next month. But in YNAB, you're not just looking backward. In fact, you're hardly looking backward at all. You're deciding what matters more going forward. You might say to yourself, all right, we loved those dinners out, but we've also been wanting to take the kids to Disney next spring. So you move $200 from dining out to Disney next year. That one click is a decision about your priorities. It's not about restriction, it's about trade-offs. You're choosing memories over takeout. That's what YNAB does better than any other tool or method. It turns vague spending awareness into clear decision-making. Expense trackers tell you what was, and YNAB helps you design what will be. And when you start using it to make those small trade-offs intentionally, everything changes. You stop feeling guilty about money because you finally see that every dollar you move is your choice about what matters most to you and your family. Mistake number 2, your plan does not match your real life. This mistake is one that I see in almost every YNAB setup that I review. Your spending plan doesn't actually match your real life anymore. Here's what I mean. Open up your YNAB right now and scroll through your categories. If you've got money sitting in places you don't spend it, or goals that made sense last year but haven't been touched since, you're running into this problem. You're sending your dollars to destinations that don't even exist anymore. And when your money's connected to outdated priorities, it creates tension you can't quite name. You're working hard, you're earning well, but somehow your plan doesn't feel like your life. Here's a real example from a client session. I was reviewing a budget for a client, an attorney earning around $175,000 a year. Married, 2 kids, busy life. On the surface, it seemed like he was doing everything right, saving, paying off the credit cards each month, and setting aside money for goals. But he still felt constant pressure, like no matter what he did, he was behind. Then we noticed $3,000 sitting in a category called professional development. I asked him, when's the last time you spent from this category? He laughed a little and said, honestly, maybe 2 years ago. I keep meaning to take a course, but it never happens. That one question started to unlock everything. He moved that $3,000 into a new category called summer vacation. Instantly, his face changed. He said, I can actually picture that. My wife's been wanting to take the kids to the coast. We could book the rental right now. Same money, completely different feeling. That's what happens when your plan finally matches your real life. The fix to this one is pretty simple. Once a month or so, do a quick check-in with your entire plan. Look at your key categories and ask, does this still reflect what matters most in this season of my life? Because even last month's priorities might not fit this month's reality. I've personally freed up thousands of dollars in my own plan just by doing this once in a while. And I've watched clients do the same. not by earning more money, but by unlinking their money from things they no longer care about. When your plan reflects your real life, every dollar starts moving in the same direction you are. Mistake number 3, you've hidden the why. This next mistake is really sneaky, actually, because your spending plan can look totally fine on paper, but still feel empty. And that's because you've hidden the why, or more likely, you haven't fully figured it out yet. Tell me if this sounds like you. Most people name their categories after boring tasks: pay the bills, groceries, savings. But those names don't mean anything when you're tired or stressed or tempted. And they definitely don't make you excited to think about your money. The most common version of this mistake I see is with savings. Almost everyone I meet starts with a category called savings. So I ask, what are you saving for? And usually they say, I don't know, I just want to save. That's when we have a conversation about how all money, think about this, all money is spending money, eventually. Saving isn't about hoarding, it's about being ready to spend with intention. If you don't name what that money's for, it never feels finished. And you always feel a little uncomfortable, like something's incomplete. The fix to this mistake is simple. Rename your categories to remind you of the outcome, not the obligation. One of my favorite categories, for example, is called Technology and Toys Over $100, because I want to be able to buy some ridiculous, novel piece of technology when the impulse strikes, and I can do it guilt-free because that money already has a job. Instead of savings, try Freedom Fund, future travel, or next big move. Instead of car maintenance, try keep my car running smooth. Instead of emergency fund, try sleep well at night money. Your spending plan should tell the story of what matters to you, not just what costs you money. When your categories carry meaning, your spending plan stops feeling like restriction and starts feeling like alignment. Mistake 4, the cluttered spending plan. This next mistake is one I'd almost call a crime if I weren't guilty of it so often. And who knows, you might be making this mistake right now too. Again, it's the cluttered spending plan. You know the one. 172 categories all jammed together, tiny fonts, colorful emojis everywhere, half of them with balances that don't make any sense. Look, I get it. You love details. You want your spending plan to capture everything. But the problem is, when your plan starts to look like a tax return, you stop wanting to look at it. Here's the thing. The purpose of your spending plan isn't to show off how much data you can manage, it's to give you clarity in 5 seconds or less. And I'll be honest, this is a tendency I have to fight myself. I'm the kind of person who doesn't want one category called subscriptions. I want 27 categories. One for Netflix, one for HBO, one for YNAB, one for, well, you get the point. So every once in a while, I have to trim it down. I combine categories, group some goals together, and follow one simple rule. If I have to think too hard about where a transaction goes, I have too many categories. Here's my test. Open up YNAB on your phone. Can you find your top 5 most important categories in under 5 seconds? If not, you might have too much clutter. Keeping your plan simple means you spend half the time moving numbers around and feel twice as calm. And that's the real test. If your spending plan feels heavy, it's not because you're bad at it. It's because you're too good at it. It's probably because you've over-engineered it. So clean it up. Simplify. Use category group headings to create focus. A spending plan that's easy to read is a plan you'll actually use. Mistake 5. You're planning in someone else's language. All right, last one. And I'm dying to know if you can relate to this one. Most people build their spending plan as if they have to become an entirely different person just to make it work. They copy someone else's setup, follow someone else's category structure, and then they wonder why it feels awkward or exhausting. But here's the truth. You already have strengths. The way you think about money, the way you organize information, the way you stay motivated, that's your native language. When you try to plan in someone else's language, it never quite clicks. But when you build your plan around how you naturally think, everything starts to feel smoother. Maybe you're visual. You need colors, icons, or progress bars to stay engaged. Maybe you're analytical. You love seeing averages and trend lines. Maybe you're motivated by emotion and you need category names that remind you why you're doing this in the first place. Whatever it is, lean into that. Your spending plan should sound like you. When you stop fighting your own wiring, you finally get a plan that feels easy, one that works with you, not against you. Now, one big word of caution before you go applying all of this. If your money still feels chaotic, if you're constantly moving things around or putting out fires, these 5 fixes won't solve that all on their own. You've got to get the foundation right first. So before you do anything else, go watch my video on how to rebuild your spending plan from the ground up. Once you've got that baseline in place, these 5 tweaks will start working like magic. You'll spend less time planning, feel calmer when you spend, and finally start seeing your dollars do their jobs without you constantly having to babysit them. And if you'd like some help getting there, someone to walk through your real numbers, find the blind spots, and get your plan working for your life, that's exactly what I do. You'll find a link below to learn more or book a session. Otherwise, go watch that next video, get your foundation solid, and then come back to make these 5 fixes really pay off.